or it means creation. And in the manuscripts, the actual name is Bereshit, which is to say, in the beginning, period. That's the way it is. In the beginning, this is how it is. Now, many people teach that this earth is only 6,000 years old. And they don't understand there was an earth age before this one. Because science documents this earth is millions of years old. So does God's Word. And we're going to document that today. That we had an earth age before this one. A lot took place there. But as it is written, and so it is, that we have these proofs. Let's take chapter 1 and let's take verse 1. Let's read it. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, period. Now, let me ask you a question. When did it say he did this? Well, in the beginning. Well, when was the beginning? That's the whole thing. It was millions of years ago. Why people try to put, you know, when a Bible thumper can make himself look quite foolish, because we know even in documentaries this earth is much older than that. But then God's Word also declares that this earth is much older than that. Now, let's check out, if we may, a little bit. Let's go to Proverbs, the great book of Proverbs, chapter 8, where wisdom was with God from the beginning. Who is wisdom? Wisdom speaks in this 8th chapter, and it lets us know a little bit about creation. So we're going to go to chapter 8, the great book of Proverbs, and we're going to pick it up at verse 22. And verse 22 reads, listen carefully. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. Before he ever even built the foundation, wisdom was with him. Well, how can we say that? Well, all wisdom comes from God. You can count on it. That's the way it is. Verse 23, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ere the earth was. Can you latch onto that? Can you grasp it? I mean, wisdom before earth ever existed. We're going eons of time here. Verse 24, when there were no depths, no ocean, I was brought forth. And when there were no fountains abounding with water, I was with him, wisdom was. Because wisdom is what brings all these things to pass. That is to say, God's wisdom. Verse 25, before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth, before any of it. 26, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust, that's every little particle of soil, eretz, of the world. And so it is before even the first little atom of dust came to be, so it was that the Father was with him. You know, you're not going to have that today, but I cannot help but go to the great book of John. I'm going to read it to you because a lot of people say, well, is that written in the New Testament? Well, of course it is. All things are written in the New Testament, basically, that are in the Old. St. John, chapter 1, I'm reading it. You've all read it before. You'll be familiar. In the beginning, there it is again. Bereshit. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the Word became flesh and walked among us. Verse 2, the same was in the beginning with God. The Logos, the Word, the truth. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness, and darkness comprehendeth it not. In other words, darkness can't hide light. Light dispels it, drives it away. Light is of God, and darkness is of Satan. How precious it is that our Father in both the New and the Old Testament, if you'll just take the time to check it out, God's Word will always lead you into truth. And truth is what really sets you free from anxiety, from the unknown. And once one knows and understands the creation, then one can better understand why we're even here. And secondly, what our purpose is. And thirdly, our destiny. That is ever, ever so important. Now, returning back to Genesis chapter 1, let's pick up verse 2. Verse 2 reads, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Now let's take this word "and," because you're going to have it heading each verse hereafter, practically, to the end of this chapter. It's called, to a scholar, a polysyndeton, which is to say, going back to the first, every time you read the word "and," it says a lot more than just the letter "and." Well, what does it say? It says what was just stated. And the Spirit of God moved, the Holy Ruach moved on various things and changing things. And so it was. Now, this would be a little disturbing if you didn't understand it, that God would create a mess. That in the Hebrew, this is tohu vabohu, without form and void. I mean, it was torn up. It was a mess. Do you really, in using common sense, do you think God ever created anything that was a mess? The answer is absolutely not. So, what we have to do then is take this word "was." What does it actually say in the manuscripts? It's very important. Let's call up the Hebrew word that is translated "was." It is in your Strong's Dictionary, in the Hebrew Dictionary, 1961. It is "hayah," a primitive root. And you can compare it with 1933, to exist, to be or to become, not was, but to become, came to pass, okay? And that'll do it right there. It wasn't "was." He created it perfect. He created it beautiful. And it became void and without form. Now, if you were a Bible scholar, you would know why. Because Satan rebelled and God had to destroy the first earth age. Why? Because a third of his children followed Satan. They were deceived by him. God doesn't want to destroy his children, so instead he destroyed that first earth age that was perfect. It was beautiful. North was true north. Magnetic north was true north. Everything was in perfect order. The earth was surrounded and protected. And it was a fantastic thing. That's the way God creates things. And so it was. So the earth created by God was not created void and without form. Those of you that have companion Bibles, your Appendix 146, before the foundation, katabo, in the Greek tongue, will help you a great deal in understanding this. But there you have it. It was not void and without form. It became void and without form because it was destroyed. God never creates anything that is void and without form. Well, can we document that in another place? Of course we can. Go to the great book of Isaiah with me. Isaiah chapter 45. You're going to have it on the screen. Isaiah chapter 45, we're going to read verses 18 and 19. Listen very carefully and learn from God's word. Verse 18, and it reads, "For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not, N-O-T, not in vain. That is tuhu, not wrecked, but he formed it to be inhabited. It was beautiful when he formed it. I am the Lord, and there is none else. Verse 19, I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I said not unto the seed of Jacob, seek me in vain, voidness. You won't find me there. I, the Lord, speak righteousness. I declare things that are right. And certainly he does. He always has. So what did it say there? It said that God created this earth not void and without form. He created it to be inhabited for his children. It was perfect. It was wonderful. And many people might say, well, what happened to it? How come it? Well, you know something? Do you know that we have documented proof in our documentaries about that great overthrow? It certainly wasn't the flood of Noah, if that's what you're beginning to think. It wasn't. But you can go to Ash Falls, Nebraska, to the state park there called Asphalt Park, and you will find only, I'll repeat it again, only African animals, birds, and creatures. Only animals, that's the rhinoceroses, right where they fell because of a great volcanic eruption from the state of Idaho, I believe it was, or Washington, that came over that area. And at the watering holes, these animals fell as they were, all in contact. They weren't torn up by carnivores. You can find 5 different types of camel. And you find rhinoceroses, even with little ones still in the rib cage of the womb. And turtles and birds, all from Africa. Well, how in the world did they... Well, do you think man brought all those African animals over and planted them there in Nebraska? Of course not. It was at the Catabo, the overthrow from the foundations, when God disrupted the plates and divided the world in the form that it is. If you take the United States of America and shove it up against Africa, you'll find it pretty well fits. And then you can begin to understand why those African animals are so well preserved in Ash Falls, Nebraska. It is, if you ever had any doubt and wanted the Bible proved of the first earth age, look at what is there, not what you might be told while you're there. Look at what is actually there. Always look at facts and know and understand. That is, those animals died and their natural moistures drained and were leached from them. Then the minerals of that area and that volcanic ash seeped into those remains and hardened them into this petrified condition whereby they are perfect. Take like the camel's tail, even every little bone right in, still in place, not torn up and scattered by carnivores. But then you can see how that God, in the beginning, what a beautiful earth this must have been. Protected from storm, protected from everything. That's what certainly makes that trip well worthwhile. No, as it states in that 18th verse, God himself that formed the earth and made it, he established it, he created it, not in vain.